Arthur Murphy now dips his hand into the mailbag to pick out your letters and your views on television programmes.
Hi there, and nice to have you with us once again for another lot of your comments. And our readers this week are Anne Brogan.
Good evening.
And Al McKenna.
Good evening.
And it's straight to Bishopstown, County Cork, to Breege Dowling, who gives a smack across the wrist to Gabo about his quiz on The Late Late on October 25th.
In order to win the prize, it's necessary to answer a question on the telephone. Whilst it is understandable that the caller should establish the identity of the contestant, it's beyond my comprehension why personal questions should be asked. The question which I found most reprehensible was, what do you do for a living? I hope that in the future TV personalities will be sensitive to the feelings of those who do not wish that their occupations be broadcast to the nation.
Yes, I take your point, but I imagine Gay does it to give the person at the other end of the line a chance to get their breath. After all, if you're watching the programme, you hope but don't expect your card to be pulled out. Then the lucky person is worried stiff they'll do all right when it comes to the question, particularly when there's an expensive car at stake. However, I'll pass on your letter to the man himself and ask if he might try a different tack. And Gabo, you're still not off the hook. Tony Morahan, Clonmel, reminds me that it has been customary and polite to greet a new acquaintance with a proper, firm handshake. By proper, he means both parties using the right hand.
It seems to me that handshaking has taken a turn for the worse. I say that because even some media celebrities have reduced this handshake to a knuckle bruiser or pulse stopper. Well-known RTE personality Gay Byrne is an offender in this greeting policy. For example, on the Late Late Show dated the 27th of September 1991, Gay Byrne introduced Diana Moran to the public. Just before she sat down, Gay, using his left hand, grabbed her fingers like she was a doll. Would you call this a proper handshake, nearly crushing her fingers? Arthur, this is a bad example for the youth. We are told often enough at home and at school that if you can't do something properly, not to do it at all.
In fact, Gay, it looks like a concerted campaign because George Hogg, Paul Whiteley and John Mullins, also from Clonmel, point out that in some countries it's an insult and considered bad manners to use the left hand. All I can say is that, maybe the old neuralgia was giving Gay a bit of trouble on the night. Now, if you're a regular viewer of this programme, you'll know that Talkabout has regularly come in for a fair share of stick, a fact that hasn't gone unnoticed by Sinead Coleman, Ferrybank, Waterford.
Dear Arthur, I'm 14 and love the programme Talkabout. I wondered whether I was the only one who liked it, as on your show almost every week there is some criticism of it. So I did a survey in my school with 200 students. An amazing 130 of them watched Talkabout every week, while another 50 watched it now and again. So are critics who write into your show just watching Talkabout to find faults in order to write to you, Arthur, or to win £25?
And some words of praise for Checkup from Richard Robinson of Ennis, County Clare.
The courage and sincerity of all who took part and their acceptance of what must be the most heavy of crosses, the loss of a child, put all other problems into perspective. This programme should not only get the normal one repeat, it should be and needs to be shown again and again. Perhaps it might even penetrate those in our community who do gratuitous violence and treat life with contempt. Were they to realise that their children too are only given to them on loan. Well done to the production team and participants. This programme was television at its very best.
It required a sort of a re-evaluation in discovering, first of all, where am I at? What has this done to me, and who am I now? And secondly, who is this girl that I married? Because she has gone through changes, and that re-evaluation required time and patience and tears and an understanding between us that, yeah, we have changed and we're unlikely ever to be the same again. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So we've got to start off again.
Would you have anything to say to people whose friends or relations have been recently bereaved, to help them?
Yeah, well, I can only say from my own experience is that stay with them, keep calling, be there when your support is needed. You don't necessarily have to speak words. You don't necessarily have to have the right words, but just to be there.
Now, know your sport, or rather, one James McGee. Jimmy, I've an awful feeling that this name and address-shy lady in County Galway is not to, well, not to put too fine a point on it, not exactly partial to your good self.
Why can't they just get on with the quiz programme like any other quiz or game show? Why does it take two people to host the programme? Surely George Hamilton could manage without Jimmy sitting there to be admired. It seems to me he just loves the attention and is full of his own importance. Surely the programme is to find out the knowledge of the contestants, not to listen to Jimmy McGee going on and on.
Ah, come on now, aren't you being a bit harsh? Mind you, when it comes to being hard, Anthony B's Old Blackrock Road Cork can dish it out with the best of them. Anthony was watching the World Cup rugby, but feels that
While the discussion, feedback and debate amongst those in the studio seems to be of excellent quality, I feel I must complain about the thinness of the live commentary. My main grumble is that for most of the matches there is only one commentator, and that commentator is not always an expert in rugby. The result of all this is that over and over again, when a series of crucial events happen on the pitch, events which are clearly visible to viewers, especially on slow action replays, the events are either not recognized by the commentator or they are seriously misinterpreted by him. For example, during the second half of the England versus Italy game, the implications of the deliberate over-the-top by the Italian players were completely ignored by George Hamilton, who seems to be asked by RTE to be an expert on every sport. Thankfully, the studio team put the matter right at the end of the game. And during the scintillating Ireland versus Australia game, where George Hamilton and Tony Ward combined the sound performance to match the visual spectacle. Please, can we have the sports experts giving the live commentary?
I had a word with Tim O'Connor, head of television sport, who told me that with so many matches to cover, it wasn't always possible to have an expert with the commentator in the commentary box. Instead, they had the experts in the studio. But when it came to the matches Ireland were involved in and to the final stages of the competition, then they had, as was evident on the Australia-New Zealand game, Fred Cogley commentating and Tony Ward passing comment. But then, so far as Mrs. M. Cleary, Tipperary Town is concerned, Ted Walsh can do no wrong.
What a pleasure it is to watch and listen to Ted Walsh, our brilliant racing man. Now, Arthur, I have never owned a racehorse or anything like that, but we here in Tipperary are very proud of our famous trainers and jockeys, and so our love of horses. Ted Walsh has a great air of confidence about him. Horses are his business, and he knows each one from head to tail. Apart from his great knowledge of racing, he is witty and humorous, and I'm still laughing at his Batty Barry story on a late show last year. I would like Ted to know he is a real favourite with the punters in Tip.
Praise indeed for a fellow who I understand was born in Cork. Does RTE have to ape British programmes? That's the question posed by Bobby Doherty of Portstewart, County Derry.
I refer to the pathetic Jerry Ryan circus on Saturday nights, when Whose House and Blind Date are poor replicas of the British counterparts, not to mention the poor man's Robin Day, John Bowman and Questions and Answers. RTE is generally acceptable up here, especially sport, RTE Orchestra and documentaries, and as you fellas down there enjoy BBC and ITV without licence, I reserve the right to pass judgment on RTE.
And still with Jerry Ryan, Jackie Harrington, Regina Mundi College, Cork, watched Secrets for the past 3 weeks, and
When they are playing the second last game, when they have to say something about a particular topic, the men get to talk, and then if the men stutter or repeat themselves, the women get pied. I think this is chauvinistic and sexist and is unfair. Do they think that men will be somewhat less humorous than the women? Are they? Maybe Jerry Ryan as a person is chauvinistic, but why should chauvinism come into the programme that he is hosting? Myself and my family used to enjoy Secrets before these pathetic, childish competitions began.
might add, because she mentions it, that Jackie is 14. Well, Kevin Lenihan, series producer, tells me that the partners are given the choice as to which one, man or woman, will answer the questions or who will get the pie in the face. And so far as he's aware, the women all opt for being pied. And it's back to Cork, this time to Kanturk, where senior citizen Eileen Lynham asks,
Dear Arthur, have you noticed the dog in the opening credits in Coronation Street, shown on RTE2 on Monday, Wednesday and Friday nights at 7:30? I notice it is a collie or sheepdog breed, and perhaps of a docile nature. Nevertheless, any dog, I am told, that gets the taste of blood is a potential killer. Now, Arthur, the dog charges down Coronation Street, past a lady with an attaché case, and God help a little one or an old person who may be in its way. I'm aware that this is a fictional show with an eye on current issues. How many, especially children, Arthur, have been savaged by dogs without a leash, and seemingly in this case also without an owner in sight? What are the producers of the excellent show thinking about?
Well, Eileen, I know what you're on about, and I'm sure the producers of Coronation Street have the dog there purely to add atmosphere to the scene. But, even allowing that many dogs are not savage, dogs allowed out on their own are the responsibility of their owners, who should, of course, keep the animal on their own premises and only take it out on a lead for exercise. If they can't be bothered to do this, then they shouldn't keep a dog. I thought last week I wouldn't have to deal with Winning Streak again for some time, but I should have known better. Last Friday, Matt Farrell and his wife at Blanchardstown, Dublin 15, tuned in to Winning Streak and
couldn't help noticing that none of the envelopes contained postage stamps. One is needed if it is necessary to get back to the National Lottery headquarters. Does this mean that no one bothers with stamps? Or could it be that they are opened and vetoed in some way before being put into fresh envelopes? I, for one, would be very interested to know why. Surely it would be a lot fairer to just get all the envelopes, stamps and all, and put them all into the drum as they arrive.
Matt, I went through all this last Saturday. Before the studio draw, there's another draw which includes all the cards sent in which are whittled down to the 95 in the studio drum. As to your specific query, producer Kevin Lanahan tells me that you are correct. The 95 letters in the studio drum do not have stamps on them. The cards are taken under strict supervision out of their original envelopes and put into fresh ones, in case it could be said that Mike or a celebrity guest might recognize a postmark and favour that part of the country or a particular city or town. Furthermore, these 95 are literally brought to the studio in a sealed plastic bag and only put into the drum just as Mike announces that he's going to make the draw. And not only that, but the lotto people have their own scrutineer and their own video camera recording all this to make sure there's no jiggery-pokery. Now, Joanna Hunt, Gorton Gross, County Limerick, is totally disgusted with RTE's latest advertisement for stay-free sanitary towels. As she points out,
Do you not realise the embarrassment that I go through each time that comes on? A period is a very private and personal thing. I have a daughter who is 13 years of age and just started, and her brother teases her each time it comes on. I would be very grateful if you would please do something about that disgusting ad. I'm not the only woman who shares this view. I look forward to having this ad demolished in the near future.
and on the same commercial, Kathleen Duffy, Crumlin, Dublin 12 adds,
It was bad enough to see the little children wet in the front and wet in the back, but this is really sickening. Is there no privacy for women anymore? What do I tell my grandchildren when they ask me about this ad?
Joanne and Kathleen, I contacted our advertising department, who would like to point out that all commercials broadcast by RTE are subject to the Code of Standards for Broadcast Advertising and must be vetted by their Copy Clearance Committee prior to transmission. And care is taken to ensure that any commercials are tasteful and should not cause offence. Obviously, you would disagree. However, the Copy Committee, I'm assured, consists of both men and women who took the view that this commercial handled the subject delicately and agreed to allow it to run after 9 p.m. Further informed that while this is a relatively new product category on RTE television, similar advertisements have been running on almost every other television station in Europe for a number of years, and on ITV channels, widely available in this country for about the past 5 years. Now, Joseph Hyland, Portarlington Laois, has, as he says, a special request.
Would you ever petition RTE1 to change that mosaic portrait, picture, thingamajig, or whatever you would like to call it, representing the Angelus? Every time I look at it, it drives me mad, as one cannot make head or tail of it. Could we have a portrait of a child ringing a bell or such symbol? Good luck to you on your mission, Arthur.
Joseph, I understand that our presentation department changed the Angelus picture roughly once every 2 months, so the present one should end soon. As you can appreciate, they've been doing this now for something like, 30-odd years, so it becomes more and more difficult to ring the changes on what you see on your screen. Bar having something else of a religious nature, which would not include the Blessed Virgin. Well, earlier on it was a rap on the knuckles for Gabo. Now it's the turn of Master Derek Davis. Morning, Nicholson, Dublin 6.
Any chance of having a word in Derek's ear and ask him to stop interrupting when the doctor or vet is speaking? I didn't like the way the knitting competition was done. Why did the lady taking the cards out of the drum put one back and pick another?
Derek, would you ever doon the veil, at least now and then? As for the competition, Noel Smith, the editor, tells me that to save time, they put all letters received, correct or incorrect, into the drum. Kate, who did the drawing, did draw out a card, but it had not got the correct answer. However, instead of giving it to Derek so he could say that it was incorrect, she forgot and put it back in the drum. But he assures me that she could not see what she was drawing out of it. And then there's Patrick Quinn, Ennis, County Clare, who knows I'll blow a fuse when I read his complaining about Live at 3. Me? Blow a fuse? Me? Cool, calm and collected? Me?
To tell you the truth, the programme is too good in a way. What I'm saying, Arthur, is they have added too many items to the show and not enough time for some items such as art. The show is busting at the seams. They are certainly at a crossroads. Less items or more time on air is the answer. I say more time on air is the perfect answer. An extra half hour, perhaps. If you get a chance, Arthur, pop over and find out what plans they have for the future.
Again, Noel Smith admits you have a point, but he says he has something of a dilemma because to make the programme have pace, he has to include items that will appeal to a wide variety of viewers. And if he allots more time to individual items, viewers not interested in a particular item will lose interest. However, he assures me that they are looking at the problem on an ongoing basis. Now, let's move to Maureen Evreen, Carndonna, County Donegal. We'd like to congratulate RTE and everyone concerned for putting on Misha Agus Pangarbon.
This is a delightful series and the best thing I have seen done in the Irish language for children in a long time. Please read out this letter so that parents and teachers will encourage children to watch it. You don't read out many letters from Donegal. I don't know if that's your fault or ours. You're much nicer without the glasses.
Maura, the fault is yours. We'd love to get more letters from Donegal. And I wondered when someone would notice I hadn't been wearing the specs since last April. Now, Sean Cooney, Crumlin Road, Belfast, on behalf of a group of Catholic and Protestant community workers in North Belfast who work across the peace line, watched Would You Believe on October the 24th, with appreciation for the Reverend John Dunlop and Jesuit Father Brian Lennon, who presented their fears openly and with respect for their positions. Sean underlines Father Lennon's invitation to religious and laity to
come north. To experience our situation is a top priority. They are welcome, and we as a mixed team of activists will reflect, share with you our experience, to let you see in reality the vast amount of inter-community work that is going on at grassroots. That does not make the headlines in press, radio and TV. As John and Brian said, come and visit us. Just that. To Father Dermot McCarthy, Reverend John Dunlop, Reverend Father Lennon, we say good show, thanks. To RTE, we would say, as a follow-up to October the 24th showing, how about community activists in North Belfast be asked by head of RTE to share with your viewers our experience in putting into practice what John and Brian asked for. We will not be found wanting.
Sean, I took your suggestion to Father Dermot McCarthy, editor religious programmes here in RTE, who said that he would be interested in following it up in some future edition of Would You Believe? And I'll also pass it along to our programme planners. But next on the agenda, Airtel. With me in the studio, Kate Kavanagh. Kate, welcome to Mailbag. We've had a few letters, well, we get quite a lot of letters about the Airtel service that we put out here at RTE, but just typical, this young lady called Sinead down in Ennis, she's a keen Stefan Egbert fan, and she was watching his progress in the Tokyo tournament, and then all of a sudden there was no more about him. She
Yes.
wants to know why.
Well, I can explain it now. First of all, my apologies to Sinead for her abrupt ending of the Stefan Edberg Tokyo, it was the Tokyo tennis
Yeah,
tournament.
tennis tournament.
Now, that was going on around the same time as the Rugby World Cup was starting. And we have to give priority to certain aspects of sports that we cover. And we decided we were going to go with full coverage of the Rugby World Cup. We were averaging 30 pages a day. So some things have to be dropped because the more pages you put up on Airtel, the slower the output. And we were limited at the time to the number of pages we could put out at any given time. But that's more or less
That's
fixed
what the
now.
reason for it,
Yes, we have improved on that now. We have
Good.
extra pages.
Another young lady called Suzanne Doyle of Ballon in County Carlow says that she's noticed that when she looks at Airtel, letters and words are missing. What's the problem?
Well, this is a common complaint we have, and people frequently ring up the Airtel office about this. It's what's known as dropout. when you go into the text on your remote control and you see what should be a perfect Airtel page with perfect spellings and perfect words, a lot of letters appear not to be there. Now, it's not our fault. That's the tuning in the television set.
So in other words, the little tuner knobs on the
That's
side,
right.
there's a little door you open your set and
you tune it
there.
in. Now, your picture may appear to be fine, and you're looking at the television and it looks as fine, but if you go into text, if there's dropout or it looks like Cyrillic alphabet, it's completely gobbledygook looking at it.
So it's not your end?
It is not our end. No, we wouldn't broadcast something like that.
So
in fact,
tune in the set.
We do have some spelling mistakes, but not like that.
Tune in
the set.
Another interesting development is, of course, that Airtel on page 888 are subtitling quite a few programs, and I believe that Irish programs, we had Cathal going saying that he hoped to help out with subtitling. I gather Jabas is going to be subtitled from next week on, which is this new Irish series, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. You get all programs that are subtitled. You will get them on page 888, and there's also information on Airtel's TV Extra pages on what programs will be subtitled for that week.
Kate Kavanagh, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And so on to our prize winners this week, and they are Breege Dowling of Bishopstown, County Cork, for her letter on Gabo and his awful questions, Sinead Coleman of Waterford for her complimentary letter about Talk About, and Bobby Doherty of County Derry for his one on Jerry Ryan. And we leave you with the Rathmines and Rathgar Musical Society from this week's BB Show. Bye for now.
Oh, Jerry,